Last week, I participated in an AI hackathon with my company where we attempted to automate specific business cases using AI. Right around hour two, when we started getting into webhooks, complex integrations, and agentic AI, it became very clear to me that I wasn't as fluent in AI as I had originally imagined. This kind of came as a surprise to me because I was an early adopter of these LLMs. I've used AI to build basic apps and agents, custom GPTs, and I've integrated the software that I use into Claude so that I can operate it directly from Claude. So I've mastered these tools for very specific use cases, but I know that there's a lot of busy work in my day that I could be automating with AI. And worse than that, there are tasks that I actively avoid, but I know that with the right prompts and tools, I could take those on with AI. I've been at this intermediate level for about a year where I'm not getting worse, but I'm not getting that much better when it comes to how I use AI. And this is frustrating, especially for the amount of time that I spend looking into these tools, doing this research, and actually spend inside the LLMs. So I did what I tell everyone else to do when they hit these plateaus. I sat down and I built a customized learning path so that I can become an advanced user with AI. This video is going to go through the 5-step process that I use to design personalized learning paths in order to go from intermediate to advanced in a specific skill. This week we're looking at AI, but this can be applied to anything else where you're trying to go from an intermediate level to an advanced level. I'm walking through this build in real time. This is exactly what I did. It's not theoretical. You'll see how I refine the goal because becoming an AI power user or becoming an advanced user in AI is way too generic to be useful. How I create the skill map or deconstruct the skill, how I evaluate where I'm actually at in relation to my target, what I choose to work on, and how I choose to sequence the plan. My hope is that watching me build this for a real skill is far more useful than watching me explain how I would conceptually do this. You'll see the decisions that I'm actually making in real time, and even the ones that I'm not sure about yet. My name is Jesse. I'm a designer, teacher, and a coach. I have a master's degree in curriculum instruction and teaching, and I've been using and applying the frameworks tied to accelerated learning for around the last 10 years. The goal of this channel is to apply the science of learning to real world skills. Before we get into the exact build, I want to talk a little bit about the difficulties of making the jump from an intermediate level to an advanced level. In my opinion, this is actually the most difficult jump to make when skill building. And there is a very specific reason for that, and it has to do with structure. When we are a beginner, there are very specific things that we need to learn in order to become intermediate. These are usually not specific to us. They can be generalized to a much wider or broader audience. Therefore, it is very easy and very profitable to make courses for beginners. Once we get to an intermediate level, we usually need to specialize in order to get to advanced. What we need to learn becomes much more specific to what we already know and what our goals are. Creating a personalized learning course for a specific skill is much more difficult and much less profitable. So most people bumble around this intermediate level for years before becoming advanced, or before giving up entirely. The primary goal of this channel is to give you the tools that fill this gap in whatever skills are most important to you. All right, let's dig into the build. My first step for this project was to focus my goal. I started out with the goal to learn and apply the major concepts in AI automations in order to get the most out of my Claude Pro, Microsoft Copilot Studio, and Stack AI subscriptions for my use cases. This is better than learn AI or become an AI power user, but it still could use a lot of refining. So I copied a template for creating SMART goals into Figma and started filling out each section. A SMART goal is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. I thought my original goal was not specific enough and would be pretty hard to measure. So I went through this process to get those pieces specifically. In my specific section, I wrote things like automate major workflows in my personal and professional life, identify workflows worth automating, identify where AI can help me take on tasks I've been avoiding, be able to troubleshoot problems I run into when creating these workflows. Some of the stickies in my measurable section are one automated workflow for professional life by the end of the week, and creating a framework or conceptual model document to identify when to automate a workflow, the best parts of a workflow to automate, etc. In my attainable section is my rough plan, so one 90-minute session per day dedicated to AI learning and then testing automations. My relevant is trying to answer, is this the right time? Will I stay motivated to achieve this? And as I said before, I just came back from a hackathon, and I will probably have to present on it, or what I learned at least. So creating a conceptual framework for agent workflow creation will provide value to my team. And then timely, again, I said there's a good chance I will have to present on the hackathon next Friday. So I'd like to have this by then. After I had this filled out, I took a screenshot and asked Claude to help me create a SMART goal based on the template I just filled out. I gave it a couple more clarifying inputs, and it came back with develop a tool-agnostic framework for identifying, building, and troubleshooting AI automations and agent workflows, and apply it to ship at least 2 working automations, one professional, one personal, using Claude, Copilot Studio, and Stack AI with a presentable framework draft, deck, or doc ready for my team by Friday morning. So this is a much more specific goal with easy things to measure, and that's really what I was looking for. So it might not be perfect. It is definitely a little wordy and maybe too big, which we'll see in a little bit what that causes, having too big of a goal. But this is better, much better than where I started from. Getting into deconstruction. Once the goal is set, it's time to start deconstructing the skill. That skill is identifying, building, and troubleshooting AI automations and agent workflows. The other part of my goal were more tied to what we're measuring, what we're creating. So that is the specific area of the skill. I started by mapping out what I thought I knew about that skill and wrote things like understanding my workflows and identifying which part of a workflow to automate, general AI skills like prompt engineering, token management, and output evaluations, and features of AI tools like knowing the features of the various tools I mentioned and when to use one over another. Then I took that skill map that I created and took a screenshot, pasted it into Claude, and wrote the following prompt. I am attempting to deconstruct this into learnable chunks. Here's what I have so far. What is missing? Explain your reasoning. Make no assumptions. Again, this works best if you have either kind of copied and pasted your goal into Claude or you're using the same channel. And it came back, it recommended adding skills related to agent design, output evaluation, data and integration plumbing, security, governance, and cost. So I copied all of the recommended skills back into the skill map. And this is where I will pause to add a note of caution. There are 32 skills on this list, which is a lot. And as you're about to see, this is going to make the evaluation process a very long and tedious one. So at this point, it's worth considering either modifying your goal so that the number of skills needed to achieve that goal is smaller, or running it through the prompt again to combine some of the like skills so that you don't have to go through testing against 32 different skills. We will do selection later, so don't worry about refining the skills right now. But the next time I have AI help me with this process, I will ask it to kind of condense the amount of skills that it's recommending that I'm learning. Our next step in the process is evaluation. And aside from refining your goal, this, I would say, is the second most important step in this entire process, especially when it comes to personalizing your learning path. As I said, for the intermediate level, the goal is structure, and that structure is only worthwhile if it's personalized to you. Evaluation is going to keep you from focusing on things that you already know. And in order to do this, I took a screenshot of my skill map and pasted it into Claude and wrote this prompt. Knowing what you know about my goal, I want you to look at each of these specific skills, not category of skills, but specific skills. Create 3 questions for each skill to evaluate where I'm at right now. The purpose of this is to create a quiz so that I can use to determine my current knowledge of each of these skills so that I know where to focus my studying and my projects for this week. Do not give me the answers, create the quiz, and I will input the answers for you to grade by skill and category. Then I had to refine the output a couple more times, but eventually I got the quiz that I could use to test my knowledge. As you're probably thinking, 32 skills, 3 questions each, is a 96 question short answer quiz, which is a lot. It took me over an hour to complete. I wouldn't recommend doing that again. So refining the skills slightly before this step so that the test is manageable is definitely recommended. After I finished the test, I pasted my responses back into Claude and had it grade my answers. You can see, going down to the overall scorecard, my categories, I had personal workflows, which I scored 26 out of 36, general AI skills, features of AI tools, output evaluation, agent design, data integration and plumbing, security, governance, and cost. These are all of the categories that were broken down into my deconstructed list. I then asked, the output gave me the 3 biggest gaps in my knowledge that would affect my success. So agent design, you're presenting an agent workflow framework, but skipped almost every agent question. This is the biggest blocker. Data integration, as I said, I got a 0. And then systems level evaluation, observability, evals, iteration loops. Your team will ask you, how do you know this works? And you won't have an answer. So knowing where I'm at makes it much easier to select an area of focus and create a plan around that. I could have probably stopped right here and just told Claude to build me a plan based around learning these 3 topics and applying the concepts, but I took it one step further in my selection and asked, which 20% of inputs will produce 80% of the outcomes that I want? Supporting selection questions. If I could only learn 3 to 5 things in this skill, what would they be? What do world-class performers do that intermediates don't? What are the most common mistakes beginners make? What is the minimum learnable unit? So my 3 to 5 things were, number 1, workflow decomposition with deterministic, probabilistic, and human boundaries. So this is how you can decide what to automate and how to automate. The tool use or function calling fundamentals. What makes it an actual agent, input and output contracts, structured output, JSON schemas. This could be speaking a foreign language. I don't understand anything. I know what a JSON is, but I don't know what input and output contracts are. Eval design, failure modes. Without this, again, you don't know if it works. And then tool fit, when to use each of these tools or when to present them. The next 3 questions, what would world-class performers do that intermediates don't? What are the most common mistakes beginners make? And what is the minimum learnable unit? I use these more to gain a framework around how to think about approaching these projects personally, but also develop a shared framework with AI before it creates the plan so that when I ask it to create that plan for me, it can just go in and refer back to my 3 to 5 things and then each of these kind of parameters so that they can create the best plan for me. Speaking of creating the plan, the next step is sequencing, and Claude is itching. It's been itching this whole time to give me this plan. Every time it has that last question, do you want me to create a plan for this week for you? And eventually, yes, I say yes, but here are some parameters. First one is a time frame. Assume that I have about 90 minutes per day to work on this so that it's not giving me too much or too little to focus on. The next one is around the kinds of projects I want to take on. I want you to recommend a framework of projects I could take on during each step in order to evaluate my knowledge, not a specific project that you can create. Again, Claude and these LLMs are trained on the internet. So they're going to give you the broadest use cases that you could imagine in order to apply these things. I don't want that. I want to use it on a project that is useful to me so that when I'm doing this, I'm actually building things that I want to use. And last, I make sure to reiterate my goal. So then I say, remember, my goal is blah. And then I say what my goal is. I press send and it gave me a project plan. I didn't like the first one. It was very project heavy. It didn't take into consideration that I scored a 0 on some of these concepts, and I need to learn some of these concepts. So I went back with, okay, this is almost there, but remember that I took a long test that you created to show my knowledge. This program is completely project focused, assuming that I know all of these concepts already. There are many that I don't. I would have no idea where to get started on day 2, for instance, which I think was webhooks and that kind of stuff. So refine your output with some suggestions on how to learn these concepts suggested in each day. I put that in and it spit out a plan for me, and I would share it with you, but I'm not going to because it's personalized to me. It's not personalized to you, and I want you to go through this process. And honestly, I'm still working through it. It's not perfect, but it's good enough and it's enough structure. I feel like maybe not in a week to get me to that advanced level, but I'm going to go for it 90 minutes a day, see how far I get. And it's much better than where I was, where you're just bumbling around with nothing to guide you and no way to track if you're actually getting better. If you like this video, the next one is going to be me going through the process, so you'll probably like that one too. Make sure to subscribe. And if you are on a learning project and you're stuck at a plateau and you want to work directly with me, I'm running a promotion right now. It's $97 to work with me one-on-one. We will run an evaluation like what we did here. I will help you identify your bottleneck, and then we will create a plan on how to get past that. It will never be this cheap to work with me one-on-one again. Candidly, I'm doing this in order to eventually probably produce a course out of it. So if you want to do that, link is in the description, or you can just go directly to actuallylearning.com and find out more. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching. All for now, and I'll see you in the next video.